Okay, let me get started. So today I'm going to talk about some new gateway products we're going to launch, and well, also some about which one to choose when you have a choice. Some new cloud features, general cloud, and also some upcoming gateway features. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to put them in the question thing. I will try to keep an eye on it. And also for the whole presentation, I made a handout, which is contains more slides than the ones that I will be showing during the presentation. There's a frequently asked questions list that is also included in this PDF you can download. So the whole idea with our cloud in general and our gateway more specifically is that we want to have a simple solution, a solution without complexity, at least for configuring it, so that it's easier to manage, easier to monitor, and easier to troubleshoot. And yeah, well, any gateway, any router is your first line of defense, and getting some idea about what your network traffic is doing is important there. So we have our wireless APs, we have our switches, and now we have our gateway, so we can get a complete solution, and it is all managed by the cloud. And it is important to note that our solution, at least our cloud solution, is cloud-centric. So you have your cloud, our secure cloud, with our different types of devices around it, and then around that all the devices that are connected to it. So the platform, the infrastructure, and yeah, well, your Internet of Things stuff. So because we are now calling our devices our EnGenius SD-WAN Gateways, I think it's important that everybody at least has some idea of what SD-WAN stands for. And the short version is that it stands for Software Defined Wide Area Network. And it covers stuff like easy configuration of your redundant WAN and also stuff like one-click VPNs. If that is what you keep in mind when somebody is starting to talk about SD-WAN, you're probably pretty close. So SD-WAN is VPNs made simple. You just need to activate it and do not need to do too much of a configuration of it. So the reason that we're calling it SD-WAN is it makes it more clear to a lot of people what the capabilities, features, and the possible applications of our devices are. So the whole idea is that we will let the management platform, so as our cloud EnGenius AI, do the heavy lifting, determining IP addresses, things like pre-shared keys, etc., etc., etc. So the SD-WAN features that our gateways already support are the auto VPN and not traversal. So you can create a VPN with a few clicks. We use IPsec for security, and if the public IP addresses changes on the interface, it will automatically change that. The firewall policy will be applied to all of your VPNs, so you do not need to configure it for each VPN separately. We have our dual WAN with load balancing and failover, including cellular failover if you can get a working USB stick. And of course, you can have some status and topology view. And yeah, because it's cloud, you can manage it and configure it from anywhere, even from the beach on a tropical island if you wish. So to get some idea about the auto VPN setup, we will have the cloud do the heavy lifting. And that means that I need to click here apparently to make something happen. The devices will tell the cloud where they are, and then when they connect to the cloud will tell them where they can connect to. So that is the way this works. Then if there is a router in between, a net router in between your gateway, the cloud will notice, and again the cloud will tell the other device that it needs to connect to the public IP address of the router, which the other one is behind. So it will give all the information that is needed there. And the last important thing is the self-healing VPN. So for the current firmware version, what I'm showing here is not supported yet, but that's something that is coming. So here the whole idea of the self-healing VPN is that if the IP address of a port changes, then it will be able to tell the cloud, and then the cloud will tell the other devices to create a VPN to the new IP address. But in the future, it will also be possible to do that when it switches to the backup interface. So our main features is a NAT NET and VPN router, secured auto VPNs, like I said before. It has a stateful firewall with pretty high throughput, and it has dual WAN for load balancing and failover. So as a baseline, I hope you already have some knowledge of our 510, which has well, some capabilities. And the things about the hardware to mention is that it has 4 2.5 gigabit Ethernet interface. One which is always for connected to the internet, one which can switch between the internet into internal and to internal LAN interfaces, LAN interfaces. Now, there was a webinar just last week, on May 9th, and there they dropped this this scheme, which is showing actually 5 different gateways. So we already know the middle one, the 510. It was talking about 2 new ones, which have a so-called Denverton chipset. We will see on the next slide why that's important. These 4 will be our cloud devices, and the last one will be FitExpress. But there's something with the naming that went wrong, because now if you look at our site, you will see ESG620, which has 4 1 gigabit interfaces. However, the cloud one will probably be called ESG610, so this one will have some different naming sometime in the future. So if you see the ESG620, it will for the cloud, it will probably have 3 1 gigabit interface and 1 2.5 gigabit interface, and not the 4 1 gigabit interfaces that are mentioned now. So the 610, that is the first one to come. I have one here at my home office for some time already. It has the same, well, actually all of them have the same software features. The software features are generic. It is much more powerful than the ESG610 because of those faster Denverton CPUs. And the important thing about the Denverton CPUs is that it has the Intel QAT feature set, which you can use for compression and cryptography acceleration. So it can make your VPNs faster. It has the same housing as the 510. It looks the same. It also has the same ports. And the nice thing about the QAT engine is that if that part is enabled, it will increase your speed of the VPNs with about 50% compared to the baseline without. So if you look at the 510 and you compare it to the 610, I think the 610 already has a faster chip. So you can expect something like 15 to 30% performance uplift just because it has a different Atom chip in it. And then beyond that, or on top of that, if you're going to do VPN stuff, IPsec stuff, it will have another 50% increase over that. So it might actually be in the VPN stuff altogether something like almost a doubling compared to the 510. So that's about the 610, and then we will have another 620 coming, the 620. And the 620, well, again, the same software features. It has the same CPU as the 610, so the same Denverton Atom chip, but it will have 8 Ethernet ports, so 4 more than the 610 or the 510. It will also have 4 PoE ports in total, so 3 more than the other one, and it will have 2 SFP plus ports, so 10 gigabit Ethernet ports. And in addition, it will have a console port and a USB port, but that's not there. And it will be in a much larger housing, and it will be delivered with 19-inch rack mount package. So if anybody wants a rack mount device and money is no option, no problem, then this is the device to go with, because the 510, the 610 are really desktop devices. You can hang them on the wall, but not put them in a rack. The ESG620. So, well, actually, I'm also introducing this one, but because of the possible name changing and stuff like that, it was a little bit unclear what was going to happen with it exactly. So it's probably coming a bit later than we were expecting before. Where before we were expecting it to get to be launched at the same time as the 620 or about the same time. It will now be a little bit later because the fit version will probably be launched first. So instead of the 4 gigabit interfaces, we're talking about 3 gigabit interface and a 2.5 gigabit or multi-gig interface. It has the same housing dimensions, The housing is slightly different. It is a little bit less powerful. It looks the same, except it will have an SFP port, so 1 gigabit SFP port that you can use to put in a SFP. And otherwise, it's the same as the 510 if you're talking about the ports. So the next thing is, okay, which one do we want to buy? Well, like I said before, if you need a 19-inch rack mountable version, the 620 is the only one that you will you can use. You will notice that we have model numbers, and we also have something like nice names. So in most cases, you will probably see in our marketing material, we will probably talk about the Gateway 6 something or the Gateway 5. And if you order on the price list, you will probably see the ESG620, 610, etc. So from this, there's the other thing. How fast does it need to be? That's the other reason to select the device. If it needs to be as fast as possible, of course, you need to have the 620, but possibly your internet connection is not that fast, and you can use a little bit slower device. For instance, if you have just 100 megabits, probably the ESG620 will be just fine. The VPN throughput will be about half a gigabit, 500 megabits, although this value is probably a little bit optimistic, because when they are doing these kinds of tests, they are measuring it under ideal circumstances, and also the packets that they're using for the test are probably the maximum allowed value. So for most devices, it's not just about the amount of bits they are doing, but maybe even more the amount of packets they are passing through. Maybe more for the firewall and a little bit less for the VPN, because for the firewall, they do need to do the translation, and they're actually mostly looking at the header and changing the header and just passing all the other data, which is quite easy to do. For the VPN, of course, you need to do some translation, encryption and decryption, and that's not necessary for the firewall part. But anyway, if you have a 100 megabit link, for the firewall throughput will be more than enough, and even the VPN, the throughput, you might run into something near link's speed for the VPNs in ideal situations, at least. And in this way, you can also look at the other ones. So look at the required firewall throughput, look at the required VPN throughput, and decide on that basis which device you need. And so if you need one not for cloud but for Fit, then we have the one for Fit Express. And again, I should say here, note, it's Fit Express. You cannot manage it with the Fit controller. So it's just cloud managed with the Fit Express cloud thing. As far as I know, you can there's one question about the SFP Plus port in the in this one. I think you can also use an SFP in it. At the moment, for all the switches we had with SFP Plus switches, of SFP Plus ports, I was able to just use it with SFPs, and I expect it will be the same also for this device. So you can use it for normal SFPs. The other thing is that I do not think we will have anything like link aggregation capabilities on any of the ports for now. I'm not sure if link aggregation is something that needs to be implemented in software. I expect it will probably be, and in that case, it will be very hard to do because it will impact the device quite a lot, the performance of it. So, okay. Yeah, well, of course, our devices are perfect for, well, more or less any situation you can think of. And so, yeah, the user benefits also. Now I want to switch to some recently added cloud features. These are very generic, not just for our gateways, but I think I want to mention them anyway. So one of the things is that we have added a feature in our firmware upgrade. You can now enable sending emails to alert you that a firmware upgrade is going to take place. So that's a feature. We have a trial zone that you can enable, and these you can use to just test out a few devices in the network and have and find out if there are any issues with your situation earlier. My colleagues can simply not test all the different topologies that people might put the things in, because as so often you find that people are using combinations of settings and features that nobody thought would make sense, maybe. But anyway, the other thing is for our access points, our security access points, we now have a protection. So with RGuard, it's to prevent clients to connect to rogue APs. This is done by sending deauthentication frames to attack the rogue APs and to deassociate all the clients from connected to them. You need to be very careful with this, because it is actually the same as malicious hackers are using to have people connect to their rogue APs, and you only want to actually attack rogue APs and not your neighbor APs. So by default, all the APs are put in the neighborhood list unless you have some special filtering rule to automatically put them in the rogue AP list. So if they are in the rogue AP list, then they can be attacked if you enable this. So on the SMILs with a pretty, well, we are now at 0.56, I think, but from 0.55 it's supported. So this is about the containment. You can enable this to attack those APs, or actually the connections to those APs. I still have to test this, so you can see which are contained and which are not contained. For our new Wi-Fi 5 4x4 AP, ECW130, link aggregation is now supported. I tested this with switch configured to link aggregation control protocol, the 802.1ad, and that is working. So they do not specify it that linker that it is this kind of LACP, but it is. And you can just enable this, and of course you also need to enable this on the switch for it to work properly. In the there was a request to show the user IDs for devices connecting to I think these are for the switches, so you can more easily identify the different clients which are connecting using the external radio server for authentication. Depending on which language you speak, it might be more or less interesting, but we have now the selection that you can select different languages for the cloud UI. If anybody has any remarks about the Dutch, they need to tell me, because I was in charge of making sure that it was correct. And I think I have probably still missed some of the strange things that the automatic translation did. For the gateway, so we have the NET NAT traversal feature. For some reason, we could not disable it at that time. You could only choose between auto NAT traversal or port forwarding, but now you can disable the NAT traversal. There is a way that if you create a firewall rule, that you can apply those that firewall rule to everything, all the devices in the organization. So usually, all the rules are based on the network, but by checking this, you can force this one rule to be active on the whole organization. So that makes the life a lot easier if you have, well, more than a few gateways to manage. The other thing is of course, that usually if you have a client, a VPN or a client that connects to your gateway to a local network, you will be able to connect to that local network. But if you also want him to be connected through the site-to-site VPNs to another site, the other site needs to know something about the IP addresses and have that the clients are getting, and have the packets routed back to the correct gateway over the site-to-site VPN, and then from there to the client. And it's now possible to include your IPsec client VPN subnet. So the IP addresses that the clients will get from the gateway when they connect to the gateway, to make sure that clients can also connect through the gateway over the site-to-sites to other sites. This might have been in there for a long time, but I wasn't aware of it. And that is that if you have there's a possibility on the map to check your VPN connections, and it will show information, including information like the latency of the connection. So not just if it's disconnected or not, but also the latency of each of the VPN connections. Now, until yesterday, I didn't have a lot of information about this, but yesterday in the US they did my US colleagues did a presentation, and one of the things that they mentioned were a few features that were coming to our gateways. So one of the features that is coming are application rules. So I'm not sure how much sense it will make for traffic that is encrypted. So if it's in a VPN already, or if it's HTTPS, but it will be possible to look inside packets that are not encrypted and block or allow them or deny or allow them based on those rules. So it should be able to block some of the peer-to-peer applications more easily. Policy routing. So if you have multiple links, you may want to have a certain link always be used for a certain traffic. One of the things that you can think of is this is this most simple example. A lot of ISPs will only allow people to resolve all the domain names if you connect to them locally. If you do not connect to locally, they will only resolve the names that are on their network, on the ISP's network. So if you want to make sure that you get all the answers for a DNS, then you want to route all the traffic to the DNS server of the ISP over the link to the ISP, assuming that your two links are to different ISPs, of course, which you should, but it's still. I see one question back of about this part. Yeah, they just dropped this yesterday, so I'm still waiting to see what will be a part of this. But you do not need layer 7 to drop HTTPS packets. You could already do that with layer 3 because most HTTPS traffic is over the same ports, always 443. So you can just drop it based on that part, and that is something you can already do. That said, finding out if something is HTTPS when it's not on port 443, I don't know. I think yes, but I'm not sure. So for policy routing, DNS, also in some cases, you just want the connection always to stay on the same connection. Like if you're connecting to a bank, you do not want your connection to switch from one link to the other link with load balancing, because then you can keep on logging in over and over and over again. A few other things that are upcoming. URL filtering. I think this will be very popular with a lot of people. What they are not telling me here is if the URL filtering will be based on looking into the package themselves, or that it is based on looking at the DNS requests. Because DNS requests, then you can block everything, and if you need to look in the URL, that won't work if it's HTTPS, for instance. Bandwidth limitation on the switch itself or on the gateway itself. I think actually this was already in there in the past, but it was broken, so they removed it. That said, to get back to the looking in HTTPS, so there is a feature called, well, depending on who you talk to, it's called SSL inspection. At least that's the name that I know of, that will intercept any HTTPS and then decrypt it on the gateway and then encrypt it again, going out to the server. That feature, they did say something yesterday about it as being a possible future feature, but it's not a, this is not in the next 6 months or so. That will probably be next year at the earliest. And to be honest, I'm not a big fan of it. I think it is usually oversold and not half as effective as most people expect it to be. But okay, that's a very personal view for now. The other thing is, of course, now we already have the packet captures in switches and even in the access points, at least in the Wi-Fi 6 access points. We will also get it in our gateway. We can set some syslog options to save the network and firewall logs to a local server or a server of your own, and look at the logs real time. So I expect that will be looking at those logs without a 5-minute delay that we now have sometimes. Also, feature that is coming, the auto VPN failover. So at the moment, if you have your VPN configured on one of your on the primary one, or you configured one as primary and you will configure the VPN on it, and that link goes down, then your internet may switch to the failover link for backup, but your VPN tunnel you still need to do manually. But that is going to change with this. This will also need one of the questions in academy exam to change, because now the answer is correctly that it will not fail over, and then of course it will. Lastly, I think we'll have a new VPN client tool. I'm not totally sure about the exact way this works, but as I understand it, the nice thing about this is that it will be able to get the information you need to create the client VPN to a gateway from the cloud. So the client, the VPN client makes a connection to the cloud and it gets all the information there, and you only need to press on the connect button to make it work after that. So we have support for Windows, Mac, and mobile apps. So I expect that will be both Android and iPhone. Oh, it will also support split tunnel, and I'm not sure if everybody knows what a VPN split tunnel is for a client. So for clients, there are two ways to make them work. One way is to only push all the one way is to push all the traffic that as soon as you have a VPN, push all the traffic that there is through the VPN, and maybe from there connect to the internet. So if you want to go to the internet, you go through your VPN tunnel through the gateway on the other side and then out, which is something that some solutions require because of security. You do not want to have a link and then have somebody connect to the device that is connecting, and then through that connecting to your secure network. So without the split tunnel, everything goes to the VPN, and then you can make it more secure because people cannot go there. Then you have to split the real split tunnel. In that case, all the internet traffic still goes directly to the internet over your local network, and only the traffic that needs to go to your local network, to the goes through the VPN. So this is much less hard on your VPN connection, and you will have less traffic, only the traffic that is really needed. But it is a little bit less secure solution. So when you're going to connect, you're going to connect with the username and password. Presumably, this will be the username and password that is used for the person on the cloud. So this feature is not free. They are going to talk so they're talking about 1,000 VPNs here, but presumably they will also be smaller numbers. I think I heard the product manager Anthony Lai say that for each gateway you will have 2 free licenses, so 2. But if you need more, then you can buy VPN's licenses, and those will be shared over all the ESGs in an organization. So the licenses will be organizations, and that makes that you can even shift between which device you're connecting to without impacting the number of licenses that you're needing. Okay, I have seen 3 questions so far. Are there any additional questions that people want to ask? If you have any questions later, you can always email us at support@engeniusnetworks.eu,